Hello, and welcome to this podcast. I will be talking about the five major classificatory systems of substances of use and abuse, starting with depressants, then moving through opioids, stimulants, hallucinogens, and lastly, psychotherapeutic agents. I'd like to note that these classification systems, although there is some logic and rationale behind them, they're not universal or agreed upon. So you will find different theorists and researchers using different classification systems. So let's start with depressants. Depressants such as barbiturates and benzodiazepines produce calmness and reduce muscular tension through their effects on the neurotransmitter GABA. This process relieves anxiety, tension, convulsions, and even reduces high blood pressure. Inhalants provide depressant effects alongside hallucinogenic effects and sometimes feelings of invisibility. Inhalants produce neurological damage as well, um, most importantly to major organs. Alcohol, a depressant, indirectly amplifies the release of dopamine through the inhibition of GABA, while also impacting several other neurotransmitters in the brain. Alcohol poisoning can occur with heavy drinking, including hangover effects, and sustained alcohol use can lead to serious withdrawal, including anxiety, insomnia, hallucinations, fever, and in some cases, death. Respiratory failure, coma, and death are all also potential consequences of overdosing on alcohol. Moving on to opioids, which have similar profiles to depressants but are different in important ways. Um, Opioids are found in nature and can also be synthesized. They're also referred to as narcotics, although the word narcotic sometimes gets generalized to all substances of use and abuse. But properly speaking, or historically, narcotics would apply to opioids. They're also sometimes called um, opiates, and that's usually when they're naturally derived from opium poppies or semi synthesized from opium poppy. Opioids, as the larger category and the term I'd be using, are depressants, like I mentioned, but they also mask pain and suppress cough. So they're used in medicine often. Opioids affect endomorphines, dopamine, and GABA and produce euphoria, relaxation, and again, reduction in pain. Tolerance can build quite quickly with opioid use, sometimes in days or weeks, and withdrawal symptoms and signs include yawning, stomach pains, cramps, nausea, and general uneasiness, restlessness, and discomfort. Overdose is primarily caused by respiratory depression, and this happens within hours of administration. Opioid antagonists, such as naloxone or Narcan, can prevent opioid overdose, such as heroin or fentanyl overdose, by blocking opioid receptor sites in the brain and central nervous system. Stimulants are generally excitatory and affect the body and brain by stimulating neuronal activity. Lab and animal tests suggest that cocaine is one of the strongest behaviorally reinforcing drugs due to its effects of euphoria and the strength of craving it produces. Nicotine, also considered a highly addictive substance, is the leading cause of premature death in Canada and in the world. While alcohol, a depressant, is generally regarded as the most abused psychoactive substance in the world, caffeine is perhaps the most used. Caffeine, a stimulant, is generally used for its ability to delay fatigue and has a compensatory withdrawal profile that includes headaches, irritability, lethargy, anxiety, and fatigue. Methamphetamine, more commonly known as Ritalin, is a stimulant used to treat ADHD. Although the exact mechanisms for its therapeutic properties is not fully understood, we do know that it works by preventing the reuptake of dopamine in the synaptic cleft, thus stimulating the reward system of the central nervous system. Amphetamines are a group of drugs, including methamphetamine, that act in a similar way to adrenaline. They raise energy levels, reduce appetite and need for sleep, and provide feelings of clear headedness and power. Crystal meth is a synthesized form of methamphetamine that can be smoked, creating an intense stimulant response similar to crack cocaine. Crystal meth can provide over 10 times the amount of dopamine to the central nervous system as eating one's favorite food or engaging in sexual activity. Hallucinogens. Hallucinogens create radical changes in mental state and distort reality. There are hundreds of natural and synthetic hallucinogens, and the processes of how these substances work is still under investigation. Many cultural and traditional practices include the use of psychoactive plants, for example, mescaline or ayahuasca. LSD, a synthesized hallucinogen, produces a sense of separation of self and reality, as well as potential experiences of anxiety and panic. Nearly all hallucinogens, with the notable exceptions of MDMA and the arguable exception of marijuana, have only psychological long-term effects. MDMA is generally classified as a hallucinogen, although it can have very stimulant-like effects. In terms of negative consequences on the developing brain, MDMA can interfere with memory formation and produce brain damage. Marijuana, while having a much more negligible long-term psychological consequence profile, can, in extreme cases, produce depersonalization, severe anxiety, and psychosis-like effects in the short term. Hallucinogens are now being explored for their psychotherapeutic value. Lastly, psychotherapeutic agents. Psychotherapeutic agents such as antidepressants and antipsychotics aim to return the body to homeostasis by modifying thought processes, mood, and emotion. Many of these drugs produce unpleasant side effects including nausea, sedation, insomnia, and tremors. Many require a significant concentration to build up in the body and hence take days to weeks to begin working. While drugs such as benzodiazepines and psychostimulants are used in the treatment of mental health conditions, they do not provide the balancing effect of other psychotherapeutic agents. Furthermore, with antidepressants and antipsychotics, there is little to no tolerance that develops, and similarly very little abuse due to craving or other addictive qualities. Taking a final look at the effects of depressant and stimulant drugs, we see that from a neutral state, stimulation due to stimulant drugs would go from euphoria, excitement, and agitation into more negative irritability and violence, spasms, convulsions, and ultimately can lead to coma or death. Depressants, again, usually acting on the respiratory system, and other calming agents, can cause euphoria at first and relaxation, moving on to sedation, drowsiness, stupor, and finally moving into unconsciousness, again, respiratory, um, depression, and leading to coma and possibly death.